What's up, Internet fam? I just wanted to talk about some of the very positive things happening in the world right now that make me overall hopeful, even though sometimes I post a lot of really negative stuff about how corrupt our politicians are and about how the entire economy is just this wasteland of corporate garbage. All of that's true, but overall, I'm actually incredibly hopeful for a number of reasons. For one, the number one thing that really gives me hope is how much interest and how much the public has begun to really get into molten salt reactors. If you guys don't know about molten salt reactors, that could pretty much solve all of our energy issues forever, safely, cheaply, reliably. Now, it's not happening yet, but it's not some kind of theoretical thing. It is something that, in fact, has been built in the past. So, incredibly hopeful about the potential of molten salt reactors. Another thing is 3D printing and open source. Open source is continuing to dominate the landscape, both in operating systems. Linux is definitely the server operating system of the world. Android is definitely the mobile operating system of the world. And many open source apps are still having a lot of success in the marketplace. LibreOffice, Firefox. And I really have big hope for other open source projects who aren't those two, if I'm being honest. But a lot of potential down the road. Linux Mint has put together a very polished version in the last version. So I really do think that open source could really benefit all of us very quickly. And then that merged with 3D printing. I mean, once you have a little bit more legitimate 3D printing and then you've got open source hardware plans, then you can 3D print almost anything you need. Dishwasher, another 3D printer, bicycle, all the components for electric car, whatever it is you want to 3D print. When we have sufficiently advanced 3D printing, we're going to be able to literally print whatever we want. And if we have enough open source blueprints for things that we want to print, pretty much at some point everything's going to be free. That's the potential that those two technologies have. I'm also really hopeful about sustainable small local agriculture. I think that a lot of people are very interested in that. I think at some point there's going to be a shift politically where we actually have opportunity to do that. I mean, right now everybody's living in a city, living in an apartment, working at some dead-end corporate job. But I do think that as society moves forward, people are going to want to move out to the country, want to have a yard, want to be able to grow their own food. And I think that if we're able to transition more to that as a society, which I think is a little bit inevitable, I think that we're going to have to go that way because we've been so condensed in all these cities and all the apartments and all that. And it's just really not, it's obviously not healthy for our psyches, if for nothing else. The other thing that really gives me hope is actually cryptocurrency. I'm very optimistic about the way the future of the economy could look without government or corporations being able to tell us what we can use as money, what money is worth for what, how much it's being printed or not printed. There's a lot of things about our current monetary system that are just absolutely insane. If you do even a modicum of research, you just immediately run into a wall where you're like, okay, we live in Alice in Wonderland, except for Alice in Wonderland makes more sense. Oh, and by the way, the Red Queen and maybe Tweedledum and Tweedledee are in charge of printing money. So really, if you study the way things are right now, economically, for globally too, not just here in the U.S., but literally worldwide, it's really absolutely fundamentally ludicrous the way the economy is run at the moment. And cryptocurrency does have the potential and opportunity to uproot that, replace it with something more organic, more sustainable, more fair. I don't think we're there yet. I haven't seen any indications that we're even heading in that direction at the moment. However, I do think that technologically it's a possibility now, and that gives me a lot of hope. I think that to some extent, when things become technologically possible, they become inevitable to some extent. Will it happen in 5 years? Will it happen in 5 decades? Will it happen in 500 years? It's hard to say, but there's definitely a potential. Anytime there's a new technology, there's a potential for that technology to disrupt everything. And I think blockchain is a really fundamentally important technology that is going to disrupt everything, one way or the other. But I'm hopeful that it's in a way that's really pro-human liberty on the individual and family level, as well as the community level, collective level, other ways when you're talking about regional or whatever. socioeconomically, any of those things, I think that there's a real big opportunity, a real positive possibility for dynamic and positive change for our species in regards to the way that we buy and sell goods and services. I'm very hopeful that we might be able to eliminate corporations and government altogether at some point by moving more towards a DIY, organic, grow your own, instant barter system wherein we are incentivizing things that we believe in. So if there's a neighbor in your neighborhood already growing carrots that are better than the carrots you can get in the store, you're incentivized to buy from them somehow on the blockchain. These are the kind of things that are possible that give me a lot of hope for the future for like our kids and our kids' kids, if we figure out a way to implement those without creating, new boss, same as the old boss kind of corruption and whatever, which is a big if. Humans historically have not had a lot of success in that department. The way the system is now is ridiculous, and it's arguably better than it's been maybe ever in written human history anyway, although obviously there's enough different megalithic structures all over the planet to suggest there's been a lot of different societies over the centuries, and maybe some of them were better than we are, and we just don't know because they're so long ago. We don't know anything about it. Anyway, so overall, hopeful, really, despite the fact that I think both the Democrat and Republican Party are completely corrupt. Every corporation is set to continue to genocide all living things on the planet, plants and animals, and humans as well. We are living things, and we are just as much at risk, if not more at risk, from corporate poisoning than any other animals or plants in our environment. The continued war machine, the American people's taxes go overwhelmingly to giant defense corporations who then build robots that we give to the most ignorant classes in our society so that they can go murder children in the third world, often in tents. Sometimes they can't even afford tents, and they're still getting murdered by $50,000 a pop robots. So, there's a lot negative if you want to focus on what's happening right now in the world today. But overall, I'm very hopeful that in the next 10, 15, 20 years, we can solve a lot of that negativity in a really positive way, not just for us, but for all living things on the planet. And but even more so, and most importantly, honestly, for humanity. I think we're going to have some really big changes in humanity that are positive. Yeah, openairships.com.